Hey everyone, this is Jubair and I'm going to present a memory protection for intermittent computing paper. This paper was published in IEEE Transactions on Information Forensics and Security about 2 years ago. This work was a collaboration between University of Trento and Hawaii Research. Uh, so to orient you with the problem, the batteryless devices which harvest energy from ambient sources face challenges like frequent power failures that erase computational states. And when that happens, it obviously hinders progress. To combat this, program use checkpoints to save their state to a non-volatile memory before power loss. However, current systems lack protection against modification outside of the device from non-volatile memory, or if there is any error. And it could corrupt the checkpoint, and from that point forward, it is possible that the device will be compromised. This paper actually introduced a protection mechanism for such scenario. It's called MPI, a memory protection mechanism for intermittent computing systems. MPI acts as a minimal sort of intermittent compliant hypervisor that securely manages and protects devices' memory. Well, before diving into the problem itself, let's look at what intermittent computing devices are. Well, these are devices that concerns a scenario where there are frequent power failures. Typically embedded IoT devices that are spread out in various places that collect data and process information for us, but the energy isn't um, abundant. So they harvest energy from various environmental sources like sunlight, wind, and etc. But the energy at a given time is very scarce. So that leads to a potential possibility that a device might turn off while it's computing something. That's bad. So to avoid those scenarios where progress will be sort of rolled back to the initial state if there is power failure, this devices comes with a mechanism where they checkpoint things into a non-volatile memory, so that stores dynamic data so far. So if the computation continued till a certain portion of the software, it'll store the data in a non-volatile memory before the power goes off. So this is cool. It allows the device to turn on later when the energy is available and start computing from the point where it stopped in the previous shutdown, which is great. But the problem is these checkpoints are stored in a non-volatile memory. They're sitting right there, and it's possible that this computational state can be hijacked later if there is no proper verification of the checkpoints. And verifying the checkpoints authenticity and not just authenticity, cryptographic integrity is difficult because crypto operations are expensive in terms of energy, and a lot of those devices don't really have hardware support to compute cryptographic signatures and hashing and other kinds of verification mechanism. So like I said before, more formally, why we need to ensure that the checkpoints are secure? Well, the reason is um, checkpoints don't necessarily have just computational state. They also can have various sensitive information that are critical for the system operation, as well as could compromise other parts of the system. So it is possible that an attacker could hijack the control flow of a program and direct it to a malicious address space where they can control the subsequent stages of computation. This paper identified three main gaps in the current literature. While the literature studied the security of checkpoints, this paper showed that there are scenarios, there are areas where we can improve. First of all, um, state-of-the-art systems assume that the software executing in intermittent computing devices are benign, and they are not malicious. Even they don't consider the possibility that a software might be unintentionally um, security vulnerable. So the lack of integrity verification of a particular software running on an intermittent computing device is a problem. And then we have a requirement for cryptographic operation if we want to verify integrity. So those are complicated, complex, energy intensive operations. And then if we want to create isolation, we need memory protection unit, which is a rare module in low-end devices. Even if they have it, how to ensure that the memory protection will still be in place when um, we have a power failure and we reboot this system and start executing from in the middle of, say, a program. In that case, the isolation will still need to be there, but there is no guarantee because they're non-volatile. So we have to find a way to protect this memory protection, memory isolation across power cycle. To that end, this paper proposes a memory protection mechanism that targets intermittent computing specifically, even though the literature proposes many embedded system security protocols and methods, but this paper fills the gap by bringing in intermittent computing devices too, and expands the implementation, um, sort of virtualizing it into software so that um, it can incorporate more and more devices, even if they might lack a specific memory protection mechanism. The goal of this paper is to find a defense for software-based adversary where energy is scarce and not a lot of hardware support available, and develop a system so that it targets an entire spectrum of hardware regardless of whether we have hardware security module or not. So to that end, this paper proposes a trusted computing module that manages um, access control, manages memory isolations in the device memory map. Here is the threat model that considers a remote software-based adversary with full access to the network and even inside the device in an untrusted software area, software non-privileged area. Also, it doesn't consider a denial of service attack because it's really difficult to prevent. In addition, the secure part of their system, the TCM, is assumed to be installed in a controlled environment where an attacker doesn't have access, as well as TCM is bug-free. In addition, this paper does not consider physical attacks or very hardware-oriented attack as part of its threat model. So this paper, Memory Protection for Intermittent Computing, is the first component, which is a Trusted Computing Module, TCM, a memory access control mechanism. It reliably and securely stores checkpoint in the event of power failure, as well as it can load an untrusted software in the event of update. It doesn't rely on any time and energy intensive crypto operation. It doesn't trust any software other than the TCM itself, and it doesn't rely on any hardware security features. In addition, it can be extended to a full-fledged hypervisor feature. The TCM-based memory isolation mechanism works as follows. It divides memory into multiple zones with various levels of privileges, and only the trusted computing module itself, the software, can load another software or another checkpoint. Any other software, if there is any untrusted software in the intermittent computing device, it cannot load the checkpoint. Upon reset, the TCM will be in charge of verifying the checkpoint as well as allowing the computation to progress. Sort of continuing on the TCM's feature and design, a TCM has an initial code that basically replaces a typical bootloader with functionality of integrity and integrity verification mechanism, and it also has loader and a verifier that can receive an untrusted software from the network. Then in addition, it virtualizes instructions that are unsafe for checkpointing. TCM can generate checkpoint for untrusted software as well as TCM itself, so that if there is a power failure, TCM can recover or progress from the point it stopped progressing. Then it also comes with various helper functions like read-write memory operations. Here's an example of how this paper proposed to replace unsafe instructions with a safer alternative. Basically, an unsafe jump is converted into a checking mechanism that makes sure that the jump is within an upper and lower bound, so that an arbitrary jump is not possible after checkpointing. A custom toolchain is in charge of doing all this instruction modification and generating various helper function. It basically changes an untrusted software into a custom binary that allows checkpointing and verification, as well as removes various unsafe instructions. It comes with its GCC plugin and custom linker script for memory layout check for specific devices. The system comes with two functionalities: checkpoint generation and checkpoint restoration. The checkpoint generation is an API that allows on-the-fly checkpoint generation for the TCM and untrusted software. On the other side, we have checkpoint restoration mechanism that allows TCM memory to be executed first because it contains the trusted part of the software, trusted bootloader. The system was implemented in an MSP430 airframe-based device, which comes with a spatial non-volatile memory compared to flash-based microcontrollers. This airframe-based device allows you to store checkpoints, and it will remain, of course, across power cycle. But these airframe memories have higher write capability. They don't wear out like flash, so they're very, very compatible, very, very useful for intermittent computing, where you need to frequently store checkpoints before power failure. The implementation involves TCM and of course custom toolchain. The TCM has about 1400 line of C code and about 400 line of assembly code. The code size of TCM is a little less than 14 kilobyte. The compiler custom toolchain has about 1500 line of Python code along with approximately 500 line of linker script text. MSP430 instruction set actually allows variable length instructions, which is problematic because it is possible for an adversary to jump, or a malicious software to jump in the middle of instruction to sort of attempt to hijack the control flow. This is very easy to analyze statically if there is an attempt to do that, but runtime checks are very expensive in terms of computational overhead, especially if you don't have hardware support and the device is extremely resource constrained. To handle this scenario where you need to check jumps at runtime, arbitrary jumps at runtime, this paper implements a special canary to detect whether a jump is valid or invalid. To evaluate the performance of MPI, the authors implemented various software benchmarks such as SenseHash, SenseCrypto, which they run on MSP430 FRAM-based device. This device comes with memory protection unit as well as other crypto support, but for evaluation, this paper actually did not use any of those hardware features. In addition, to trace the energy consumption of this particular evaluation platform, the authors used energy trace tool from Texas Instrument. Okay, now we will discuss what is the overhead in terms of various metrics. For example, what is the runtime overhead of such system? Um, The runtime overhead varies from 2.4% to 81.5%, leading to on average 47.6%, which is substantial, although author claimed that the overall energy consumption of their paper, the MPI, is comparable to state-of-the-art proposed system. Next is what is the penalty in terms of memory? How much memory are we expecting to spend on this system? We have to understand that we are implementing MPI in resource-constrained devices where the memory is a really scarce resource. This paper consumes about 7.4% extra memory to implement these functionalities, as well as a fixed size 14 kilobyte for the trusted computing module. Authors argue that this is less than most secure intermittent protocol proposed so far. Since security is the ultimate focus of this paper, we have to evaluate how secure the system is. Authors argue that the weakest point of this MPI implementation is the trusted computing module itself, which is supposed to be a secure software in charge of managing memory isolation as well as checkpointing and checkpoint restoration. Any issue in that security related issue in that TCM module undermines the security of the whole system, because if the TCM is not secure, basically it becomes a simple untrusted system, and any security measures not really going to work anymore. Authors also argue that a formal verification of this software module should guarantee the security of the system, but I would argue this is a limitation of this paper. There was no proof given in the text. Another feature in terms of security and implementation of this MPI is that it doesn't burden the developer to change anything in their software. They can design their software as is. The custom toolchain will take care of converting the untrusted software compatible and secure for MPI implementation. In summary, we have discussed a memory protection mechanism, fully software-based memory protection mechanism implemented for intermittent computing devices that is based on the fact that most security implementation targets embedded systems, but not intermittent computing platforms where hardware is not capable of handling crypto operations, and the software implementation of those crypto operations are not also viable in terms of energy consumption and runtime overhead. This paper proposes a flexible software-based architecture that can be deployed in almost any device, regardless of whether hardware support is available or not. And then it also allows extension and inclusion of other security features and services. But on the downside, the the software overhead is pretty substantial, which comes into two flavors, both runtime and memory footprint. In addition, the trusted computing module, which is in charge of overarching management of security protocols, needs proper security vetting, because this is the single point of failure for the whole computing platform to be secure. Thank you.